I don't know if you hear it in the background, but we have sirens right now that indicates we are being fired upon. So excuse me for the background noise, and hopefully everything will be okay. Let me share the screen and the presentation for today. You know when you see the screen. Great.
We see.
Great. So hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining the webinar. My name is Chen, one of the co-founders of Deceptive Bytes. I really appreciate your time today. We'll discuss about the ransomware pandemic and that is still ongoing till this day. I'll tell you about Deceptive Bytes and our solution and how it can operate alongside your current security tools. After that, of course, we'll demonstrate the solution and the management server, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions that we may have at the end of the session. Again, please write them down in the Q&A section. A little bit about us. We're an Israeli-based company founded by Israeli cybersecurity experts with patented technology. We have customers all over the world in different industries, financial, gas and oil, manufacturing, and many more, and dozens of partners around the world. We were recognized by Gartner as a cool vendor in their security operations and threat intelligence report. And more recently, we were mentioned in their top use cases in preemptive cyber defense research that was published. Also, we got recognized by CB Insight as one of the most promising startups in cybersecurity. And we have many more recognitions in the industry as well. So let's talk about the current threat landscape. Here are some recent news about ransomware and their demands, reaching millions of dollars to restore the files and avoid publishing any confidential materials of the companies that were hit by the ransomware gangs. Most of these attacks were preventable using the proper tools and procedures. And let's talk about the sheer numbers regarding the rise of ransomware. Every second, 19 companies are attacked by ransomware, in an average of $4.5 million for a successful attack, with $75 million as the highest payment ever made to threat actors. And up until the end of 2023, the total damage cost of ransomware is estimated at over $20 billion. And the funny thing is that 70% of all the companies who paid for the ransom never regained their information back. So the worst part of a successful attack is not only the payments that the victim pays and the downtime of the business, but also the data that's being exfilled to the ransomware gangs and being used to extort the victim. Also, that you can never know if your data will be able to be restored. And of course, in addition to all of that, the loss of reputation following the attack. And why are we still, they are still able to wreak havoc even with today's security tools? That's because malware is very clever and evasive. It uses different methods to evade detection and analysis by security systems such as your AVs and EDRs and security researchers. Last research shows that 98% of all malware is using at least one sandbox evasion technique. And what it means that as soon as the malware sees it's in a sandbox environment, it tries to evade it in one way or another. And additional research mentioned that in every attack, evasive malware is using as many as 10 or more different evasion techniques. And if you look at the MITRE attack metrics, defense evasion leads in terms of the techniques used by malware, which is in the pre-execution phase of the attack. These evasion techniques are used even more than persistence or lateral movement. So how does it work exactly? Malware uses these different evasion techniques to avoid being detected and analyzed. Some of the most commonly used are the anti-virtualization evasion techniques, anti-sandbox, anti-antivirus, and many more techniques that they use in order to avoid being captured. So let's give a quick example how it looks. For the anti-virtualization, for instance, malware tries to find artifacts that belong to various VM solutions, such as VMware, VirtualBox, and so on. And it looks for files, for folders, or any indicator that it's inside such a tool. Also, it can look for system information, like the number of CPUs, the memory size, or any other indicator that will show the presence of a virtual machine. Same goes with anti-sandbox invasion techniques. They also look for artifacts that belong to sandbox tools, such as Sandboxy, Jobbox, and others. So imagine a decision tree. If the malware can perform an operation, it has thousands of potential subsequent actions it can perform. But if it cannot, its options are reduced to just, let's say, 10 operations. By predicting the next step in the process, you can foresee in the ultimate outcome of it. We can introduce elements that disrupt the malware decision-making logic. Malware being a piece of code eventually, it's a file, it's a piece of code. It makes serious decisions as it begins the attack on the organization. So the initial phase of the attack is the most effective point for us, at least, to intervene and alter its course. For example, the malware might check if it's operating, as I said, in virtual machines or sandbox environment. If we simulate a response indicating that it is, even when it's not, the malware will halt its operation, identify itself as malicious, and will be able to prevent the attack before it fully develops. That's because our deception technology uses the same defenses and the techniques the malware is using, but we do that against it. We are shaping the attacker's decision-making and beating the bad guys at their own game. Our preemptive defense deceives the malware into believing it's in a hostile or unattractive environment to attack, and by doing so, reduce its motivation and the chances of infection. So again, the example will be we make the malware believe it's in a sandbox environment, a virtual machine, or any other security tool that would deter it from executing its malicious intents. This makes, of course, the solution very effective against a variety of threats, in ransomware at the top, but also evasive malware, APTs and zero-day attacks, fileless attacks, Trojans, and many more. All of these types eventually use the same techniques, and we do that with over 99.9% success rate. So our advantages are that we can prevent unknown threats with very high prevention rates in the pre-execution phase in real time. We don't need to scan anything, so it's very lightweight and consumes little to no resources. Since we don't rely on signatures, we don't need constant updates, and it can work in a standalone, disconnected NVIDIA environments. Also, adversaries share these techniques from one another. So we only need to know one in order to be able to stop millions of threats, including future ones. And we do that with low to non-existing false positive rate. And in addition to all of that, the solution operates in user mode, meaning it's more stable than other solutions. Not to mention name, but you probably remember not long ago, an EDR vendor updated their IOC list using a kernel-based component. And that component was a bad update with a bad update, which caused all the devices to brick and not to be able to load. And this caused an outage to all the machines that ran the same EDR. So it made a lot of impact. And this is something that can never happen with deceptive bytes updates, since we operate in user mode. So we help organizations protect against the unknown threats and prevent damage to their data and assets. We do that while we reduce the reputational risk and operational burden. For the CISOs and IT managers, we help them by automating deception on prevented malware. This helps them reduce alert fatigue and handling of false positives by the security teams. For the C-level, we help increase the efficiency to all employees' endpoints and protect them, of course, when working remotely. In addition to all of that, of course, we reduce the overall operational costs. For our MSP partners, it helps achieve better ROI and manageability of multiple customers. The MSP can change tactics to threat prevention and focus on their customers' other cybersecurity risks and threats that they are facing. In terms of positioning, for the non-invasive pre-execution threats, the AV might be able to detect and stop known threats. For the post-execution of threats, EDR can detect and remediate. But for evasive pre-execution threats, deceptive bytes prevents them before they become fully fledged attacks, reduce the noise from the EDR, and provide you insights very quickly into what happened. And if we take a look at the options in terms of the customer security stack on the endpoint, of course, AV will be the cheapest option, but with the lowest results in terms of effectiveness. Adding an EDR will increase the detection rate, but will also increase the operational costs and the IT load in general for the security team and IT teams. When adding deceptive bytes to the mix, customers can improve dramatically their prevention rates while reducing their costs and IT load. And when using deceptive bytes and Windows Defender, customers can benefit from further reduction in their operational costs, IT load, and they can achieve higher ROI without compromising their security stack. And to finish off, we gathered a few tips for you guys to increase your security without even installing security tools. It can start off with installing tools like VMware, VirtualBox, which malware will have false indicators that this machine is running in a VM. This will deter the malware from executing. You can also run Windows executables like Command Line Task Manager and others, indicating the malware that it's being investigated. Also, sysinternal tools, they have the same effect. So you can run Process Explorer, Autoruns, and others as well. And you can also create these files, folders, and registry keys that also provide indicators for malware not to execute. Thank you. Now let's see a demo of the solution, and I'll hand over it to Avi.
Thank you, Chen. So let me share my screen and show you a demonstration of the solution in action. Can you see my screen? Okay. So here we have an environment where we have the Deceptive Bytes agent installed. Right now it's disabled. And we also, just for the sake of demonstration, have CrowdStrike Falcon installed as well. And as you can see, it's running and operating. I want to demonstrate two files that show you how we operate and how we prevent attacks. So let's start off with a tool called VMDE. So I'll start it first and show you how it operates when Deceptive Bytes is not there. So when we started, we see that VMDE tries to understand in which environment it's running, if at all. In this case, it detects that it's running under a hypervisor, and this hypervisor is specifically VMware. It detects that there are indicators about VMware being installed because I'm running it through workstation. But of course, this can change, of course, according to the environment. It can detect VirtualBox, Parallels, and other environments, as you can see. And of course, the idea is that malware uses those tests to understand if it's safe for it to run or not. So you see it's green because it says nothing detected, so it's safe for it to run, or it's red because there's an indicator that tells the malware you shouldn't run because you'll be detected. Okay? So this is how it looks like when the agent is disabled. Of course, we have CrowdStrike. It didn't detect it, even though these are known to be malicious indicators of compromise. Okay. Now let's enable the agent and try to run the attack again, or the demonstration. And in this case, after a few seconds, we see that it was prevented and we immediately terminated the attack. Of course, when we go to our server, we see that the device is connected here. And when we refresh the preventions, we see that we prevented the attack. So if we look at the details, we see all the information about the attack itself, how it executed, all the details about the payload itself, hashes, if it's signed or not, and all the relevant details. We also see the execution analysis, which tells us how the malware operated when it executed, so what it tried to access in terms of the operating system. And of course, the most important part is the indicators of compromise, why we decided it's malicious. So in this case, as we can see, it searches for a sandbox environment. As you saw from the first line, it tried to search for sandboxy, and we immediately detected it as malicious and prevented it from continuing. The idea is that this is well known to be an indicator of malware, and that's why we prevented it. Now, if we look at how other vendors look at it, sorry, we don't have internet connection for this server, but if we check and we see that most vendors will not detect it as malicious, again, even though it's known to be malicious. So this is the first demonstration. Let's see another one. Okay. So we have here the early bird special attack. This demonstration shows how we can prevent injections attacks, but also how we can protect your existing security tools. So in this case, we built a special version of this attack, which is an injection attack that tries to inject code to CrowdStrike. So first, let's disable the agent again, and let's run the attack itself. Now we see, if we open the task manager, we see that the CrowdStrike service process ID is 2064, and this is the agent, the CrowdStrike agent running. Okay, so we were able to connect to it and try to inject code. Obviously, it didn't fully succeed, but we were able to attempt the attack while CrowdStrike didn't even notice it or try to do anything related to that. So it allowed us to operate and try to inject code. Now, if we enable the deceptive bytes agent, so we run the same attack, and it doesn't work. As you can see, it didn't list the threads that are running, and we immediately detect it as well. So we prevented the attack, and we reported it. But also, as you can see, the attacker sees a different ID for the process. It's not the original ID. We created something random and made the attacker look at something that doesn't exist to use that in order to prevent the attack from actually working. So we protected CrowdStrike from being targeted, and of course detected the attempt to attack CrowdStrike. So we use that to our advantage. And of course, when we go back to the console, we see that it was detected. Of course, it's critical because the attempt is to take down your security. And we can see the details. We see how it executed. So we see trend from our the command line and all the details on how it executed. So this is our demonstrations. Any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to ask away.
We can also do a quick overview of the platform. Let me share the screen, just a moment. So this is the main dashboard. Here, the operator can see what's going on in his environment, from the number of devices, to the groups and number of preventions the system made, the device's status and overall health, and statistics about the preventions that the system made. Also, the recent preventions in the environment. So if we go to the prevention list and show what Avi was looking for, is the VMDE tool. We can open the 64-bit version and the 32-bit version. And what we see here is that while looking for sandboxy, we were able to prevent that file. If you fetch information from VirusTotal to the platform, we see that for the 32-bit version, 30 out of 73 vendors detected as malicious. If we look at the 64-bit version, and this is the interesting part, it was looking for the same file. Again, this is the same code that was used to build both versions, but the 64-bit version, of course, is for 64-bit operating systems. If I fetch information from VirusTotal, I can see that 14 out of 74 vendors detected as malicious. So in contrast, the first version 30 detected and now 14. And if we can take a look, CrowdStrike, Silence, Signet, and Microsoft even, Malwarebytes, all of these don't detect it, and sometimes don't detect it, the different versions. It doesn't mean that they are bad solutions. It means that the way that they operate is limited to what they know or specific pattern that they might find. In our case, we don't care about the pattern. We don't care about the signature. We care about the behavior and looking for those indicators that it's looking for to evade, and then we are able to prevent the attack in the first place. In terms of the devices, we can manage the devices from a certain from this page. We can import from Active Directory, for instance, or from a list, and we can deploy the solution through the platform. Then we can see what's going on from the status of the agent and the version of it. We can even see the latest preventions here per specific device and additional information about it. We also provide you with the overall security and OS security assessment, so you can understand the device itself, how well it's protected. In addition to all of that, if we go to a specific device, we can see further information about that device. Every device belongs to a certain group, and each group represents a different policy. And so you can set up a policy for different groups to specific OSs. Currently, we support Windows and Linux. So you can decide how to auto-approve signed files, the operational mode of the solution, how to perform remediation, either to remove the threat or quarantine it, how often to sync system information, and which engines to enable. So you can enable the anti-malware, network protection, device control, and the behavioral engine. The app control allows you to approve or block applications, either by certificate, hashes, and so on. And of course, you can block them as well. Firewall, you can set up firewall rules in order to block certain IPs and ports. So you can, let's say, block ports that are used for attacks or have vulnerabilities. In terms of the anti-malware, you can enable Windows Defender and all of the settings related to that. as well as the basic setting, real-time protection, exclusions if needed, scan settings. You can perform scheduled scans and decide when and what to scan. Also, we added the attack surface reduction capabilities that are built in. And in addition to that, you have the device control where you can block devices from being used on the endpoint. So no user can accidentally plug in an infected USB device, for instance, and infect the machine with ransomware Trojan or whatever. In terms of reports, you can generate reports for the environment to see, let's say I want to know what happened to certain devices in the last 7 days. I can generate a report. And after a few seconds, it shows me all the preventions that were made in the last 7 days with statistics about it. For the C-level, they want to know a little bit more and understand the environment, so we can generate an executive report according to a week, a quarter, or even a yearly report that they can see here. And in addition to that, as we mentioned, we built the platform for MSPs and MSSPs in mind. So we support multi-tenancy, not just for MSPs, but also for multinationals that have many locations around the world. They can have one server to manage all of their environments. So they have all their tenants and they can see all the relevant information about each tenant, from their status of the devices and the solution to their quota, even the last prevention. And they can perform actions from here as well. So they can look at the file, approve or block it, and even push the policy from here. And they can see even the recent preventions and statistics from all of their tenants. They can see further information in the multi-tenancy environment. They can also see information about the devices that are connected. So their status, their OS security, the types of operating systems and architecture, and much more. And they can also even search. So let's say I want to search for preventions. I can search for VMDE and see if I have any tenants that encounter the same file. So I can see I have VMD in the same tenant, but in different devices, and so on. And I can also perform app control to all of my tenants at the same time. This saves a lot of time managing multiple customers at once. Let's say I want to add a certain tool that I use for my customers or a script. So this will be the place that I can add the script information and approve it for everyone with a few clicks. So it saves a lot of time and effort for the MSP in order to do that. Same goes with the firewall. If you enable the firewall, you can do that and also block or allow certain IPs and ports to all of the customers at once. This is it. This is a quick overview of the platform. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. So I see, as mentioned before, I see some of the questions. We currently don't have customers in Azerbaijan. We have others in the Middle East or in the region. Most of our customers are in Europe, United States, and Latin America, Asia, and other places as well. In terms of minimums, yes, we have minimums. You can reach out to Dimitri, and he'd be happy to help you out with this information. Let's see the questions. Yeah. So the question is, does it replace the EDR? It's an additional security layer. It can work alongside the EDR, and it can work alongside the AV. We give an option to manage Windows Defender as your antivirus signature-based solution, and you can use that. And if you have another AV, you can decide if you want to use it or not, if you want to switch to Defender. Any other questions? Great. I think we covered most of the basics. If you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to reach out to Dima and the team. And we really want to say thanks to the Softprom team for arranging this webinar. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for you too, Hen, Avi. Thank you all participated today. And once again, thank you for your attention, and have a nice day, and see you.
Stay safe. Have a nice day, guys.